So glad you are with me today. I am coming to you live from beautiful Lake Arrowhead, Georgia. We have a beautiful lake over my shoulder here. I'm about an hour outside of Atlanta. I'm going to talk to you today about improving your communication skills. Why are communication skills important? Well, they're important because at work, you've got to learn how to communicate with people in order to work your way up the chain of command. And at home, you have to work on your communication skills because you want to build a relationship with your family members. We're going to talk about both those things today, mostly about things that you can do in order to improve your communication skills. So let's go ahead and do this, shall we? Let's go. Awesome. Let's kick it off. We're going to dive right in and do communication skills. I'm going to show you a slide right here that is basically the unspoken rules of leadership. Everything that I do revolves around the idea of the unspoken rules of leadership. That is basically a speech that I do around the globe to people about how they can use these tools, tips, and techniques that I'm going to show you in order to improve what they're doing in the workforce. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today, and then we're going to dive into the communication skills. But leave your comments in the comments section down below. I can monitor them here, check them out, make sure that I'm on board with everything that you're saying. I will respond to any comments that come through so that you can understand how to be a better communicator, and also so that we can have a dialogue, because the number one thing I love to do, whether I'm speaking in Atlanta, in Sao Paulo, in Dubai, doesn't matter, is I like to have a conversation. I don't like to make this a monologue. I like to actually make it a dialogue. So be sure to leave your comments down below. We are going to talk about how to improve your communication skills. And the very first thing I want to do is do a mind flexibility exercise with you. So if you take a look at the screen right now, I'm going to go ahead and show you something here that will help you open up your mind. And it's called improving your mental flexibility. This is a quiz that I want you to do. Follow along with me. Check this out. Right now, left to right, you see 3 half-empty glasses. And then on the right-hand side, you see 3 empty glasses. Now, the reason I'm doing this exercise, I'm about to give you the quiz, the reason I'm doing it is because I want you to understand that when you open your mind up to new ways of thinking about things, then you're going to end up doing a better job. Now, I don't know about you, but when I get in a rut and I keep on going and solving the same problems the same way I've always solved them, my brain gets in a rut and I can't get out of that rut. So a lot of times when I'm talking, I'll do this exercise. I'm about to show it to you again. It's a little bit of a quiz, but it's designed to help you open up your mind and expand the way you think about things. Because if you think about things in new ways, if you go out and you start kind of diving into new things and sort of explore new ways to solve the same old problems, you will have much better results. Now, I don't know about you, but if you're like me, you end up solving those same problems with the same old solutions, and you get a law of diminishing returns. And when you have the law of diminishing returns, what happens is it gets frustrating for you and for everybody else. So this mind exercise I'm about to show you is specifically designed to help you open up your mind. So let's take a look at that. Right now, left to right, you see 3 half-full glasses. On the right side, you see 3 empty glasses. Here's the quiz for you. Here's the exercise, and it's designed to help you open up your mind. Go in, and by only touching one glass, I want you to change the pattern from half empty, half empty, half empty, 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 to half empty, empty, half empty, empty, half empty, empty. You're only allowed to touch one glass. So I'm going to give you a little bit of time to kind of solve this problem. Think about how you would solve this problem. And if you solve it, mention it in the comments section, because I'm going to give you a thumbs up for doing that. We got a bunch of people joining us right now. This is awesome. We're having a little bit of fun here. If you're just joining us, we're doing this right now to understand how you can improve your mental flexibility. So look at those glasses again. I'm going to show them to you again. Here's the assignment. By only touching one glass, I want you to change the pattern from half empty, half empty, half empty to then empty, 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 to half empty and then empty, half empty and then empty, half empty and then empty. Anybody get it yet? If not, don't worry. The first time I did this, I didn't get it at all. My lovely wife, who knows how to do this kind of stuff and is really good with quizzes, figured it out. But I'm going to show you the answer right now in case you're interested, so that you can kind of expand your mind and see what we're talking about here. You pick up the second glass from the left and pour it in to the second glass from the right, and then put the second glass from the left down. Did you get that? That is what we're trying to do here, is to expand your mind. If you're like me, I was trying to solve that problem by going in and kind of moving the glasses around, right? But the solution is to go in and open up your mind and come up with a new solution, which is to pick up that second glass from the left and pour it in to the second glass from the right. Then you have the solution to what we're talking about. By the way, you can hear my lovely bird chirping in the background. Always wonderful to hear you, Birdie. They say these things birds last for 12 years or more, and we're on year 11. And that's all I'm going to leave you with there about the bird. It's a wonderful bird, I keep telling myself. But the bottom line is, you now have seen how to open up your mind with that exercise that we just did. So the key thing I wanted you to do there was expand your mind and figure out new things. Now, as I mentioned to you before, I go around the globe and I talk about what we're talking about today, which is communication skills, but it's actually part of a larger speech I give called the Unspoken Rules of Leadership. And if you go down into the comments section, into the description here, you can download a free ebook I've got on the Unspoken Rules of Leadership. It'll teach you how to do a better job leading yourself as well as leading others. But let's take a look at the slides again, and I want you to take a look at this. This is called the 4 Pillars of Leadership. The very first time I gave this speech, I came off the stage and the person said, "Hey, that was great, but I was looking for a framework that you had all your tips and techniques put into." And I thought, that's a really damn good idea. So I went out and I sat down and I said, you know what? I'm going to develop a framework. That framework is going to be called the 4 Pillars of Leadership. You see it there. I went out to a restaurant, literally put out on the restaurant a napkin and came up with this, which I'm about to describe to you in about 2 seconds. And then you'll be able to understand the 4 pillars of leadership, because when you understand the 4 pillars of leadership, you're able to do a better job leading yourself. On the left-hand side is one-to-one. On the right-hand side is one-to-many. These are things you say one-to-one, or things you would say one-to-many. At the bottom is inward, what you tell yourself, and at the top is outward, what you would tell others. And it ends up looking like this matrix that I've got designed here. And when we take a look at all of these things, you can start seeing that if you focus on your mindset, that bottom left-hand quadrant, if you work on your mindset first and your skill set second, you are then able to go in and actually figure out how to be a better leader. So the very first thing I tell people is one-to-one, inward, that bottom left-hand corner of the matrix, mindset first, skill set second. Then we move on to mentoring, one-to-one, outward, what you tell others, so that if you have to mentor somebody, you can do that. And that's why we're going to talk about communication skills in a second, because mentoring is a critical part of communication, and you have to be a good communicator in order to do a good job mentoring. So let's keep on going on the matrix that we've got here. Next slide is basically management. What can we do that we tell ourselves so that when we have to manage other people, we do a better job with it? And the secret, of course, to management is to get inside the mind of the people you're talking to. And then finally, I round the bend with marketing. This is one-to-many, outward, what you tell other people, whether you're running a large corporation or running a team. It doesn't really matter. All right, our little interlude there for In 60, which is what we're talking about here. In 60 seconds, I'm going to teach you a bunch of different things, including communication skills. But where I was going with all that was the bottom line is, when you are managing people, you need to make sure that you understand how to market to them, how to frame what you're trying to help them understand to do in order to make sure that you do things the right way. So let's take a look at the next slide, because I want to show you the communication skills. Here's the secret to communicating more effectively. There are a lot of different things that we're going to talk about, but the number one thing that I want to teach you to do is how to understand what other people are doing and how other people communicate. Because if you have a certain style, and we're going to look at styles in a second, if you have a certain style of communication and you go, hey, I'm a direct style communicator, get over it, I'm the kind of person that cuts to the chase and gets to the point, but the person you're talking to is a considerate style communicator, you are not going to be an effective communicator with them, because you have to understand how the person you're talking to receives what you're talking about. And so that's one of the key things that I want to talk to you about today, is making sure that you not only understand your style of communication, but that you understand the person's style of communication that you're speaking to. If you can get inside their mind and think about how they like to communicate, you're going to be much more effective, whether it is at work or at home. By the way, remember, the things I'm about to talk to you about are good for home as well as for the office. So let's jump back to the slides real quickly here. Here's how to communicate more effectively. And when you do that, you understand that you have volume, tone, pitch, and tempo. Volume is the equivalent of loudness. It's basically how loud you are. Some people walk into a room, they're very loud. Other people walk into a room and they're very quiet and soft. Here's a little secret for you. If you want to get people, this is a true story. If you want to get people to listen to you, if you want to get people to hear what you're saying, lower the volume of your voice and people will lean in and listen to you. And that's one of the things I do, whether I'm on stage overseas or on stage here in the United States. Sometimes I'll lower down my volume. That's all intentional. The reason is because when you lower the volume of your voice, people tend to lean in to listen. So keep that in mind as you're doing things. The second thing is tone. What's the quality of the sound in somebody's voice? You see this big, huge honking microphone I got right here? There's a reason for that. It's because I happen to have a voice that has resonance to it, and the microphone picks that up, and it calms people down and soothes them. If you've ever seen Tony Robbins speak, one of the genius things about Tony Robbins is that he has a resonant voice. It's a beautiful voice, and you can be a male voice or a female voice. It doesn't matter. If it has that resonance and you bring that out, a lot of times that will help you learn how to do a better job with your communication skills. So keep that in mind as you're moving through things. Just make sure you focus on the quality of the tone of your voice. Pitch is the frequency of the sound. You've heard people speak sometimes and they have that shrill sound of their voice. If that is you, make sure that you kind of manage that as much as possible. You can lower the pitch of your voice. And then finally, tempo, how quickly you say what you're saying. Now, here's a secret about tempo that's actually kind of interesting. I don't know if you've noticed, but every once in a while, I'll break up the tempo when I'm talking. I'll lower my voice and get a little bit softer, but I'll also break up the tempo. That's called pattern interruption. And when you interrupt patterns, people lean in and listen. So keep that in mind as you're talking to people, that when you break up the pattern sometime, when you kind of just sort of stop for a second, people actually kind of listen. So those are a bunch of different things that you can do. Although the number one thing I want to talk to you about is the communications matrix, which we're going to look at in a second, but not before we talk about active listening. This is a no-brainer. If you are talking to somebody, you have to lean in, listen to them, hear what they're saying, and focus on that. And if you do, then you have a much better communication going on. Try to identify where the other person is coming from, listen to the data behind what they're saying, and restate their concerns back to them. Anybody who is watching this right now who's married knows the number one thing you do when you are married and when your spouse talks to you, or even if you're not married, if you just have a relationship with anybody, the number one thing you can do is talk back to people or say back to people what you are hearing them say. So when I'm speaking with my lovely wife a lot, I will say, what I think I'm hearing you say, honey, is this. And she says, well, let me give you a course correction on it. And she gives me a course correction. But that's the number one thing you can do in order to really kind of have active listening going on as you go through all of that. Emphasis is a form of communication. Check this out. I didn't say he borrowed my book. 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 All of those mean different things. There's 7 different meanings to that statement, even though it's one sentence. It's the same sentence over and over, but putting emphasis on different words means different things to different people. Keep that in mind as you're going through your communication with people, because how you emphasize words will change the meaning of what you're doing. Now, take a look at this matrix right here. This is a matrix that was developed by Dr. Eileen Russo. It's actually a brilliant matrix. It'll help you understand how you communicate and how others communicate. And if you use this matrix to understand things, I guarantee you're going to improve your communication skills twofold. Watch this. Let's check this out. On the left-hand side is low expressiveness. Do you know anybody who's low expressiveness? Those are the kind of people who kind of go in and go, hey, can you get that job done? Not a lot of expression in their voice. On the right-hand side is high expressiveness. These are the kinds of people, and you know the ones I'm talking about, who go in and they're just like off the walls and they're screaming and yelling and all that sort of stuff. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good, but that is high expressiveness. On the bottom part of the matrix, low assertiveness. Now, these are the kinds of people who are go with the flow kind of people. Perfectly happy people, perfectly good, perfectly important part of any corporation, but they are the go with the flow people. Not very assertive, and that's cool. There's a lot of room for people like that. And then at the top is highly assertive people. Now, you know highly assertive people. They can be, sometimes the CEO might be highly assertive. Your team leader might be highly assertive. You might be highly assertive. The key thing is that you understand these four sort of categories here in order to move on to what style you are. So I want you to look at this matrix and figure out what style you are, because what we can do is combine these into, on the upper left-hand side, the direct style of communication. This is the kind of person who comes in and just says, get the job done, and I want it done immediately. And if you do that, that's great. They are direct style communicators. On the next, going clockwise, spirited upper right-hand side, you've seen these people, highly emotional, very assertive, walk into a room and everybody knows they're there. That kind of personality. Bottom right-hand side is considerate. These are the kind of people who are low assertiveness and very spirited in their communication. They're very decent people to be around. Figure out if you are considerate or systematic. Bottom left-hand side, low assertiveness and low expressiveness, the kind of person who kind of, it really goes along with the flow a lot. Now, what I want you to do when you look at this matrix, because we're going to talk about how to make this work, take a look at this matrix and tell me which style you are. Leave it in the comments section if you are a direct, spirited, considerate, or systematic communicator. And if you tell me that, then we'll be able to figure out how you can communicate better moving forward. So now we're diving into this. What I want you to do is take a look at that communication style matrix. And if you are a direct style communicator, here are the things that you need to keep in mind as you move forward with your communication skills. Now, remember, it's one thing to understand your style. It's another thing to understand the style of the person you're speaking to. So let's take a look at this again. Direct style communication, allow time for chatting at the beginning of a meeting. The older I've gotten, the more I'm like, I just want to get to the point and dive into meetings. And I always have to remind myself, if it's a first time meeting with somebody on Zoom, I got to chat with them for a few minutes, understand who they are, what they're about. Even if it's somebody I've known for a long time, I need to go in and make sure that I go ahead and allow time for chatting. Recognize that others may feel the need to express emotions on topics. You may be non-emotional, but you need to let other people do that. Don't use email for sensitive or complicated topics. Allow time in your schedule for questions or feedback, and then try to set expectations for meeting beforehand. Tell people the length of time of the meeting, the topics to be covered, all of the expected results. So, are you a direct communicator? If you are, keep those things in mind. Let's move on to the next one so we can understand what other styles we have going on here. Let's take a look at the let's slip the slides here. Here's the matrix again, just to refresh your memory. Where are you? Direct, spirited, considerate, or systematic? If they are a direct style. Now, this means if the person you're speaking to is direct, you have to understand where they're coming from, because they may come in and say, get that paper written to me by the end of the day today, and you think they're angry at you, and they're thinking, I just told them the deadline. They're fine with that. You may be sort of going, oh my God, they were angry at me. They're not angry at you. They're just a direct style communicator. So be sure that you kind of focus on the different things and understand how they communicate. If you are going to knock on the person's door, ask if they have time to talk before jumping in. This is, again, if the person you're speaking to is a direct style communicator. Second thing is get to the point quickly. Third thing is ask for a specific call to action or make a specific request. Fourth is don't sugarcoat things, speak plainly. And the fifth is use short, direct sentences. That's the key thing. If you are talking to somebody who's a direct style communicator, Again, the 4 different kinds: direct, spirited, considerate, and systematic. Let's take a look at the next one. And this is if you are a spirited communicator. This is if you're the kind of person that has a lot of energy and enthusiasm. That's great. We need you and we want you, and we want to understand how to communicate with you. So if you are spirited, try to limit your sharing of personal anecdotes that are off topic. Hey, guess what? I am 100% guilty of that. I'm famous for telling stories that go off on a tangent in the middle of a meeting. In my mind, I know where I'm going. Everybody else in the meeting is going, what's the dude talking about again? So make sure that you stay on task, because sometimes what you think is an interesting anecdote to the people in the meeting is confusing. Second bullet point: respect agreed upon agendas and time limits when in meetings. Third bullet point: be certain requests you make are clear and that you convey the reason for asking. Next one: communicate your appreciation for others' work and input. Those are the things to keep in mind if you are spirited in your communication. Now, what if they're spirited in their communication? By the way, this picture, the stock photo that I have here, the woman in this picture, I love it because she's got this look on her face like, what the heck? What am I doing in this meeting? She's got this funny look on her face. But if the person you're speaking to is spirited in their style, then remember, first bullet point: use an agenda with time limits listed for each topic. Now, I know you've done that before, because I know that you've been in meetings with people who are bouncing off the walls. And the best thing you can do is say, we're going to spend the first 5 minutes talking about this, the next 5 minutes talking about that, then we're going to wrap up with the next 15 minutes talking about this. It helps keep them on task. And that's your job when you're managing up like that. Second bullet point: praise them in front of other people. They love that. Third bullet point: understand that they may exaggerate. That's just the nature. Challenge them to break down their big ideas into specific outcomes. And make sure that you understand that, reaffirm what everybody has agreed to when you go ahead and work with them on that. Let's go to the next, which is basically, we're going to move down to the considerate category in the matrix. If you are, no, I'm sorry, we're going to keep on systematic. If you are speaking to somebody who is systematic, if you are systematic, so basically we are jumping to that bottom left quadrant, not the considerate, but the systematic. If you are systematic, you understand that not everyone follows a linear thought process in their decision making. You have to realize that sometimes people are tangential thinkers. Who's a tangential thinker? Just saying, I am. Yeah, absolutely. I'm always going off on tangents. I think it's great. Everybody who is in the systematic quadrant thinks that I'm crazy and bouncing off the walls. And they're right, but those two blended together actually come up with some pretty powerful things. So remember, if you're systematic, you have to understand that not everyone follows a linear thought process in their decision making. Second bullet point: ask others questions about themselves. If you want to build rapport, if you want to do that, then ask other people questions about themselves. Third bullet point: make sure you understand the scope of a project so that you don't waste time collecting information that isn't going to be needed. And then the final bullet point: play to your strengths, organizational skills, and follow through. So make sure that you play to your strengths on all that. Let's keep going on this. We are going to keep moving through these 4 quadrants if they are systematic. Now, again, this is if you are speaking to somebody who's systematic in their thought process. Low assertive, low expressive. They're very sort of linear. It's and they're there for you, but you just have to understand how to talk to them properly and make it make sense for you. Focus on the facts rather than an individual's opinion. So don't come in with your opinions. People who are systematic communicators, not interested in your opinion. They are interested in the facts that you've gathered, but they are not interested in your opinion, unless, of course, you're the CEO, in which case we're all interested in your opinion. Second bullet point: speak with precision and accuracy rather than generalizations. Third bullet point: be organized, on time, and on topic. Again, this is if you're speaking to somebody who's a systematic communicator. Fourth bullet point: provide logical reasons for your actions and what you ask of them. And then fifth bullet point: allow them time for research and analysis before decision making. Let's keep going as we round the bend here, so that you can understand where we are headed. If you are a considerate person, if you're the kind of person who is very heartwarming and somebody who's very sort of I have a daughter named Mackenzie, who's very much a considerate person. She's a teacher. Understandably so. Teachers are people who are thoughtful and they feel other people's feelings a lot, and they're very considerate in their communication style. So if you are a considerate communicator, here's what you need to be doing on that front. Recognize that other people's opinions about a topic are separate from their opinions about you. Second bullet point, realize that not everyone is comfortable discussing personal topics at work. Third bullet point, respect your own opinion as you respect others' opinions. Fourth bullet point, you don't have to be friends with everyone, but you should treat others and be treated professionally. So that's one of the key things as a considerate communicator. You don't have to be friends with everybody. It's okay, not a problem. Now, let's take a look, and as we revisit the matrix one last time, then we're going to go into if they are considerate. When possible, reassure them that your opinions are not personal. So again, this is if you are talking to somebody who's considerate, go in and say, look, I'm just giving you the data. The budget came in too high. Not angry at you, angry at the fact that we didn't work together to make the budget come in on spot on. And that's the way to talk to somebody who's considerate. Second bullet point, express a sincere interest in their feelings, thoughts, and personal life. Third bullet point, encourage them to ask questions and share their opinions. Remember that. People love to be respected and be asked, what are your thoughts on this? That's one of the best secrets you can do in terms of leadership skills, is ask others for help. If you're interested in more leadership skills, check the description on this live video and you'll see a download you can do on the Unspoken Rules of Leadership. It's a 37-page ebook. You just download it, boom, and it'll teach you how to do a lot of the things that we're talking about here. But let's keep going here. Next, second to last bullet point, let them know that you appreciate their help. And then final bullet point, resolve any conflicts quickly. Those are the 4 categories of the communication style matrix. It helps you do this. I got one last thing for you to keep in mind, and this may be the most important thing of all that I'm about to tell you. It's one thing to understand these things that we're talking about here, but it's another thing to put them into action. So you may have learned a few things today on this live video that we're doing right now. And by the way, I'm going to be doing live videos more and more frequently as we go on. But I want you to understand that the number one thing that you can do is to make sure that you put all of this into action. When you put things into action, then you change your life. Remember, thoughts, make sure your thoughts are the right thoughts, turn into actions. When you have good thoughts that lead to good actions, that leads to good outcomes. And that, my friends, is what we're going to leave here with, because I know that you're going to put what we've learned today into action so that you can have good outcomes in your life. My name is Jamie Turner. You can learn more about me at jamieturner.live. Thanks for joining me. I always enjoy catching up with you. Leave comments, and I'll catch you next time.